The truth, as they say, is often stranger than fiction. In this story, CEO James uncovers a shocking revelation about Diep's parents, which leaves everyone involved reeling. What was initially a seemingly simple inquiry about a design for Diep's house turns into a profound journey into family secrets, truths, and reconciliation. Join us as we unravel the layers of mystery and emotion in this deeply personal tale. James, always the pragmatic businessman, didn't expect his call about a paint color to lead to such an earth-shattering revelation. He had been on the phone with his colleague, discussing a seemingly trivial issue, confirming a palette of colors for an ongoing project. But as the conversation shifted towards Diep's house, little did James know, he was about to stumble upon a secret that would change everything. "How's the house coming along for Diep?" James casually asked, eager to discuss progress. His colleague responded, mentioning that the house was still under design and awaiting further plans from their architect, Lynn. The conversation veered toward practical matters, what paint colors would work best for the local environment, but then it took a sudden turn. "By the way, have you talked to Diep about her parents?" his colleague inquired, catching James off guard. Diep, a woman who had become a close acquaintance and someone whom James had been helping, had always been distant when it came to her past. James had assumed that her parents had passed away long ago, a story that Diep's aunt had shared when she first arrived at his company years ago. But what James was about to hear next would change everything. The hidden truth. With a serious tone, his colleague continued, "Diep's parents, they're not dead, James. They're still alive." The words hung in the air, heavy and disbelieving. James was taken aback. For years, he had believed the narrative that Diep's parents had passed away in an accident when she was a young girl. This was the version of events that Diep's aunt had painted for him. How could this be? The very person he had been helping for so long had lived her life under the assumption that her parents were gone forever. What had led to this lie? And more importantly, why had it been kept from her? The impact of the truth. James, now perplexed, immediately reached out to Diep. He knew this truth would shake her to the core, but he also understood the importance of confronting the past. As he prepared to share the revelation, a strange sense of responsibility weighed on him. He called Diep and told her he had something important to share. The conversation was strained from the start, with Diep sensing that something was off. When James finally broke the news, her response was immediate, though full of disbelief. "I don't understand. My aunt told me they were dead," Diep whispered, the confusion palpable in her voice. The truth, once hidden, came crashing into her life like a tidal wave, challenging everything she had known about her own history. She could hardly grasp the enormity of the secret, the years of her life spent in ignorance, believing that her parents had abandoned her. James felt a deep sense of empathy for her, knowing that the revelation would not only devastate her, but also complicate her relationship with the family who had raised her. It was a complex web of emotions, betrayal, confusion, and a longing for closure, unraveling the past. As Diep absorbed the news, she began to ask questions she had never thought to ask before. What had happened to her parents? Why had they disappeared from her life? Was there a reason why her aunt had kept such an important truth from her all these years? The truth, James discovered, was far more complicated than he could have imagined. Her aunt had kept the secret, not out of malice, but out of fear. Diep's parents had been involved in a situation that had forced them to distance themselves for reasons tied to their safety and security. They had feared for their daughter's well-being and had thought it best to let her live with the family who could provide a safer life. It wasn't until later that Diep's parents reached out to someone close to them, someone who could eventually connect them back to their daughter. But the years had passed, and much had changed in Diep's life, including her sense of self. She had grown up thinking her parents had abandoned her, and the pain of that belief had shaped much of who she was. The power of reconciliation. As James continued to help Diep process the information, they both came to understand something profound. The past, while difficult to confront, had a way of shaping the future. But it didn't have to define it. Diep, although shaken, was determined to seek out her parents, to understand the reasons behind their decisions. The revelation of her parents' survival opened a door that had been closed for so long, and Diep found herself standing at the threshold of reconciliation. Her relationship with her aunt, too, would change. Diep needed answers, and she would find them, no matter how painful the journey. But more than that, she needed to reconnect with her roots, to heal the wounds of the past and embrace the future with a clearer understanding of who she was. Conclusion. In a world where secrets can be buried for years, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Diep's story is one of unexpected revelations, painful truths, and ultimately, the possibility of healing and reconciliation. For James, this journey into the unknown became a pivotal moment in his relationship with Diep. And for Diep, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one where the past no longer had to define her future.